Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I just thought I'd pop by and I'm going to do a series of cards, not all one after the other, but every now and then I'm going to do a series of cards called Tracy's Snippets. And what I mean by that is creating cards if you've only got a short amount of time and you don't want to add lots of layers. So the idea is that we're going to pare it back and create some simple cards that are called Tracy's Snippets. And this card is 3.5 inches by 7 inches, so a DL card, double length. Now, obviously I'm going to be talking through the video, so excluding the talking and fiddling around trying to find things, this should be a quick card. I'm going to be using stamp set 540, which is Daisy Wise 540, and it's an A7 stamp set. And I'm using Pink Frog smooth white card, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink my stamp up with Versamark ink. Now, just because I'm creating a quick card doesn't mean I'm going to scrimp on technique or quality, so I'm going to give the stamp a really good inking. So I'm not going to scrimp on quality or technique. So I'm just going to add this to the top there, and I'm going to extend the stamp just so that it goes all the way down my card. So I'm allowing that ink, even though it's Versamark, I'm allowing that ink just to sit on there. Now this has got what I call a silhouette quality to it, so it's got silhouette flowers. So in other words, it's got a total black areas. So because of that, you need to make sure that you ink the stamp. So in other words, it's got these silhouette areas. So what I'm going to do, because I can't see anything at all to judge where I am, I'm just going to apply white embossing powder just over the top. Just give that a tap. Now, if you've put your fingers all over your card, you're going to leave those sweaty paw prints all over your card. If you think you've done that, then make sure you use an anti-static bag just to protect that card so that the embossing powder only sticks where you want it to. Again, I'm adding a really good layer of ink. I don't scrimp on that. Whether I'm making a quick card, a card that takes me hours, I don't scrimp on that. And what I'm going to do is just stand up a little bit, just so that I can see around about where I want to place that stamp. Don't worry about perfection every time. The idea is perfecting your process, perfecting your techniques. And it doesn't happen in 5 minutes, and it doesn't happen every time. That's the whole part of being creative. Don't be too strict on yourself. It's about enjoying the process. So I'm just going to lift that acrylic block just so I can make sure I get a good image. Just bring in that copier paper once again, and then just add this. Beautiful, just beautiful. So let's just move that embossing powder out of the way, because Tracy knows what she'll do. And just so you can see that, you can see the embossing powder. And what a stunning image. What you need to do then, again, whether you're doing a quick card, a quick project, mixed media, or you're doing a card that's got more detail, you need to make sure that you heat your heat tool up. If you don't heat your heat tool up, you spend even longer waiting for that embossing powder to turn. So I'm just going to, now I can't pick the card up because my fingernails, so I'm just going to heat that embossing powder. And I should have used white embossing powder, and I've used white embossing powder, haven't I? I have. So that's beginning to turn now. So the minute that turns, just start to move your card around. You need to move your heat tool just so that you don't heat the same area of the card continually, just so that it heats and melts the embossing powder, and the minute it's melted you move down to the next area, because you don't want to over melt it, because then it will just go back to being flat. So you just want to make sure that you just move your heat tool. And you can see the areas you haven't hit. You can see that quite easily. And because I'm hitting quite a large area here, it is going to take a few moments. You're not going to be able to rush this. It takes a few moments just to heat that. And what you're aiming for is a nice glossy finish. So the minute you've heated and you can see it melting, move your heat tool. You know when you've overdone it, because it goes back flat again, which is sometimes easy to do if you're doing a large area like I'm doing. There we go. I think I've done all that, and I'll lift that up for you. Let me just lift that up just so that you can see that's all glossy and white. And what you need to remember to do is, before we add any colour, please allow that to cool down. Don't try and apply colour over that hot surface. One, your ink will start to dry straight away because it's hot, and your blending will be more, you'll make it more complicated. So don't try to blend while you've got hot embossing powder. So while that embossing powder's cooling down, just grab yourself a piece of kitchen roll. Just fold your kitchen roll just so that you can work with that, so that you don't, let's just make sure that has cooled down. Just give that a little waft like you do. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start on what I'm classing as the bottom of my card. And what I'm going to do is start with Wild Honey. Now you can use your blending brushes, your cut and dry foam, your ink blending tools. Just remember that certain tools work in different ways. So if you use a blending brush has got a softer, you're using bristles, and therefore it's applied in a lighter way, and you can get really into the detail of stencils with your brushes. If you're using cut and dry foam, you can really add a good thick layer of ink, which is what we want on this occasion. So for this, I would use my ink blending tools or my cut and dry foam. But before you do anything, make sure that you prime your implement with ink. In other words, make sure it's got a good layer of ink. So now I'm using Crackling Campfire. So the first colour was Wild Honey, then Crackling Campfire. Now the Distress Oxides just blend absolutely beautifully. And doesn't that stamp set look wonderful? Just blend over the colour. What I want you to do then is go back to the Wild Honey. We're not scrimping on technique. And then what I want you to do is blend those two colours out so that you'd get a seamless blend. Okay? So you've done your Wild Honey, you've done your Crackling Campfire, and then I'm going to use Seedless Preserves. I'm going to make sure that that ink blending tool has got plenty of ink on. Turn your card around. Now what you don't want to do, just grab a wet cloth or a baby wipe. I don't want to drag this colour into the purple because you don't want to create mud. So I'm just wiping that up. Obviously blending the sort of orangey vibes into the yellowy vibes doesn't really matter, but I don't want to create mud. So just take that Seedless Preserves and then just add your colour. Just blend that colour. And remember, this time you're going for a simple card, nothing too complicated. What I want you to do then is go back to your crackling campfire and you're using your kitchen roll just so that you don't put any of your greasy paw prints onto the card, okay? And you don't get a good blend, well, with the Oxide you do, just with one layer of colour. Make sure you add several layers of that colour. Blend it, take time to blend it, even when you're doing a quick card. Move your inks out of the way and clean your work surface, just so you haven't got those colours all over the work surface. Turn that over so we don't put that on our card. And what I want you to do then is just grab your spritzer bottle. Take your spritzer bottle and just spritz your kitchen roll. And then what I want you to do is start from the bottom and just wipe over so that you get this. Turn your kitchen roll over, spritz lightly with water, start at the bottom and just go over. And you can just buff your card with a clean piece of kitchen roll. Just buff that card, just give it a polish. That's what you're doing, is you're giving it a polish. So what you end up with is a beautiful background, and it's up to you which way you want to blend the colours. Then spritz the card with a little bit of water and allow that to sit. Just move that out the way and allow that to sit. Wipe your surface area because you don't want to work in wet. And then what I want you to do is cut yourself a piece of card that is the width of the card, which is 3.5 inches and 2 inches in width. So let me just bring this in. It fits the width of the card, but in thickness it's 2 inches. Right, what I'm going to do then is grab my next stamp set, which is this stamp set here, which of course I'm now going to faff picking up. And it's Spread a Little Happiness 628, and you're going to use this here that goes with the background stamp. So you're going to use that little stamp there. I'm going to grab an A7 acrylic block. And what we're going to do is just take our copy of paper, just so that we can get colours that match. So first of all, let's try VersaFine Clair Purple Delight. Yes, the Purple Delight will be fine. Let's try an orange. Orange, what's this one? Summertime. Yes, that goes nicely, summertime. And then let's try a yellowy colour. Yes, which is Cheerful. Cheerful, Summertime and Purple Delight VersaFine Clair inks. Now remember, this card isn't about being difficult. It's called Tracy's Snippets. And the idea is we're paring everything back and I'm doing little snippets of cards that don't take too long. Let's place this one in the middle so we know how much room we've got. So place that one in the middle. Just allow that ink to sit. Don't be in a rush. So there's your Cheerful. Just give your stamp a little wipe so we don't contaminate any inks, because you want them to be clean and fresh. Then we're going to use Summertime. And again, if you notice, because it's like a silhouette stamp, I'm still making sure that I add a good layer of ink. So I'm then going to add this, and I'm just allowing that to sit on the card. Then just give your stamp a wipe, and let's go to the Purple Delight. Ink that Purple Delight. And we're going to add this here. And by placing the one in the middle, it means I can judge better what space I've got left. There we go. So we've got those 3 colours. Let's just place that stamp back. Now, because I've used a permanent ink pad, it means that I can add water if I want to. So don't forget, this is not about complicated. It's about simple techniques, nothing too overcomplicated. So what I'm going to do then is, let me just blow that. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading just down the stem with my Inktense pencil, just a little bit. And what I'm doing is I'm pressing on very lightly. I'm not pressing on too hard. So I'm just going to blend that out just to add a little bit of shading. And my brush is also not too wet. And I'm just going to add a little bit of shading. And I'm going to keep what grey I've got on my water brush and just add a little bit of shading just around the flower. Just taking a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scribble. No, it won't. What am I doing? I'm thinking I'm using water things here. So what I'm going to do is just add a little touch just to the bottom of these flowers. I'm not going to add water to my brush. You know, I'm not going to add any more water. You know, this is the one that this water brush stays quite dry. It doesn't add too much water, so it doesn't flow too much. So I'm just adding a little bit of shading. Then go round this one. And it's very, very subtle shading that I'm adding. And what I'm doing is trying to show you basic cards. That's why they're called Tracy Snippets. Basic cards, but you don't want to scrimp on quality. So we've got a little bit of shading there. And what we're going to do is just add a little touch of a white gel pen, just going round. Just going round. Let's make sure you can see it on there. Why do I always end up with a gel pen that isn't the best? Ah, that's better. I always seem to pick the one that isn't the best. So let's just go round the yellow again. Just so that you can see. There we go. Now, have I got the stamp set? So we're not going to include any faffing that Tracy does. So I'm just going to get this little text stamp. And what I'm going to do is grab some scrap paper. Let's move all this out the way. And I'm going to take this text stamp that you know that I use all the time. And what I'm going to do, stamp first generation just onto my card. And then I'm going to stamp second generation, third generation, second generation because I'm using the edge of my stamp. Just add a little bit here. So I'm just adding little touches of the stamp just so that you can see. Just so that you can see that. Just little touches just to the stamp. And the idea is that you're going to be quite strict on yourself and you're not going to add too much detail. On this little stamp set, it's got the word hello, little sentiment, which is just perfect. It's the tiniest sentiment ever. We're going to ink that up with black ink. And you're not going to press too hard. press and lift. You don't want to just press too hard because these are very fine sentiments. Just remember, if you've touched that stamp, just give your fingers a little bit of a clean, just so that you can see that. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is use my Posca pen and just go around the edges. And what I'm doing is I'm holding my pen away from the edge at a tilt. You're supposed to do this on copier paper, just so that you don't leave the lines on your non-stick craft sheet. But hey ho, if you do that on copier paper, you don't have to wipe up. But I haven't. I've done it on, I do most things on my non-stick craft sheet. Now, we used to edge like that with Krylon pens, but we're just going to add that black edge just to give it a little bit of detail. Now, you can see that it's got some bleaching out just in the edge of that. Let me see how many minutes we've been going. We should be finishing soon now. And you're going to add this to your card. You don't want to add too much detail. The idea is that it's quite pared back. Your card is very pared back. So we're going to, and the idea is to show how, one, your glue doesn't work, Tracy, to show how you can still create beautiful projects, whether you add layers or whether you don't add layers. Obviously, you know me, I adore layers, but what I want to show is different ideas with your stamps. I want you to have lots of ideas with your stamps. Why do I always end up with a glue? Yes, let's waste several minutes just unblocking the glue. If I'm ever doing something, you can always rely on something like my glue clogging up. Oh. Do you know, I never have this. I think I left the container open because I got so engrossed in doing bits and pieces for a workshop. So I think I left my glue. So what I'm going to do is then add this just here, like this. So I'm going to get a clean piece of kitchen roll, mainly because I don't want to put my fingers just all over the embossing. So just make sure that you can just press that down. And I do like to make sure that I don't handle the card too much. I'm just going to put a little clip here, just to add the clip, like so. And then I'm just going to add some sequins, and then we have done. Let me see if I've got the right sequins. The idea is that you don't overcook it. The idea is that you keep it pared back. So I've got some sequins. I've got a purple one. Let's add. Yes, you too can have a little pokey tool that doesn't. So just adding a few sequins just for added interest. But not overcooking my design. 3 sequins is plenty. Because what I'm trying to show you is you start off like this, then you build up to adding layers. So the idea is you build up to that. You don't worry about adding too much layers straight away. And then what I want you to do, let me see if this is flowing. because I'm pushing my luck now because the embellishments are not dry. I want you to add this to a black piece of card, which is 1/4 inch bigger. So the card was 3.5 inches by 7 inches, and I'm just adding 1/4 inch black mat. And I do faff when I'm adding the mat because I want it to look properly. And then I'm adding it to a 4 inch by 7.25 inch card blank. And you then add that to your card, like so. Just press that down, add a few white splatters, to your card, and that is your card finished. So the idea is you've spent 20 minutes, if you exclude my waffling time, 20 minutes creating a card. You've still got quality to it, and the idea now for you is if you want to add bits, you can add a little bird if you want to. You can add elements behind this if you want to. I could work this up further to show you how to layer it further. The idea is to give you the basics, the snippets, and therefore you can extend that if you wish. But this is why it's called Tracy Snippets. And what I'll do is every now and then I'll come back to YouTube and we'll create a simple card with simple techniques. I hope you think that's a good idea, and I hope you've enjoyed the first of Tracy's Snippets, and I'll see you all again soon. Love to all. Bye for now.